All right, guys, so back from Lake Okeechobee down in Florida. First week of February, it's that spawn time down there. There's some pre-spawn, a lot of post-spawn, middle of the spawn, and the big fish were biting. Had a fantastic week. It's a great way to start off the year, obviously, both from a paycheck, from points, and it's just fun to catch a lot of fish. It was a blast. I fished this area. It's unlike anything I've fished down there before. It looked like they sprayed, probably even from helicopters, like an aerial spray. There were 10, 15 football fields of cattails that were dead. They came in and just a huge area killed it out. And normally that dead vegetation, they don't like it. But Okeechobee was kind of funky this year. There was a lot of muddy water. A lot of areas the hurricane had just taken out weren't in play. So up north, there was one big group of fish, and that's where the winners came from. But then in the South Bay, a lot of us were down there, and I mixed it up with them. Made a few adjustments day by day. I was ninth place after day one, stayed in 10th after day two, and I fell off a little bit on day three. My fish kind of left and ended up in 27th, but still got a $10,000 payday, and it was a lot of fun. So let's start off with day one. I'll run you through my days, a little bit the baits, show you a bunch of catches, and at the end, I'll go through my setups quick. So let's kick it off with day one. My strategy for this, try to get a limit quick, throw a swimming worm, which is so traditional in Florida, get that quick limit, and then try to upgrade. The thing was, I caught them all day. I changed up baits a little bit, but I kept on catching them. It got better as the day went on, and as you'll see, the size kept on getting bigger from a small limit to a great big one at the end. So day one, you can see this is really early. I still have my hoodie on. It's overcast, so it stayed cloudy a while, low light, and they bit pretty well at the beginning. I'm just swimming a worm. You can see there's all those dead cattails floating around, little clumps. A few fish are relating to that. There's some reeds and some buggy whips down there as well. But man, they're biting, and I get a limit like really quick. I think a couple things you'll notice, there were a lot of guys around here, a lot of fishing pressure, and it got tougher as it went on. But I was throwing 15-pound fluorocarbon, the Berkeley 100% fluorocarbon, and that was plenty. A lot of guys throwing braid. It's traditional braid water in Florida. That helped me get a few more bites. And the other thing, you can see the specific targets. A lot of guys were always throwing at a little bush or a buggy whip, a reed. A lot of the fish, those you see the big clumps, they were sunken underwater, and those bass were relating to clumps of cattails or reeds that you couldn't see, and just throwing into the open, especially after a while, that helped get some better bites.
Killing it.
So by now, I'm catching them pretty good. There's some decent ones, but I mean, I barely have a 10-pound limit of that. And that gives me the freedom to really start changing baits. I started actually moving areas. I wanted to explore, look for other ones that maybe had better fish, and that really paid off for me. But catching that early limit, that really frees you up to go after the fish like you need to. Now this is when the bladed jig makes its first appearance. The swim worm getting a lot of bites, but man, the slobber knocker, you won't get as many. And other guys, that's what a lot of the top bags were on. I wasn't getting a lot of bites in this area, but when I caught one, it was a good one. I was mixing up colors and different trailers and stuff, but definitely I kept on picking that up, working it in, and every time I did get one, it was a good one. You can see, the worm's still getting him, how thick that stuff was. That fluorocarbon held up well, and I was amazed. I barely had to retie with it, but it was a battle. The better ones, you had to dig them out. And there were all the reeds you can see in the area. I did try to slow down and fish those. Some guys were, and they flipped them. They just didn't catch that good a size. I used the jerk shad some. Instead of flipping it, I would work that up to it and just let it fall into the reed patch. I catch a pretty good one here, and that's actually on braid. You can hear it singing there. But the rest of the time, jerk shad, when I would catch them, the stuff in the bushes or flip them just weren't that good. It was that open water in between that seemed better on day one. Now here later in the day, this is when that bladed jig really started to shine. I mixed it up on the slobber knocker, the black blue, such a traditional Okeechobee color, and then go with sun perch, a little bit brighter, trying to mix it up, kind of like the tilapia. But Man, when you get one on it, it's a it's what bulldogging down in there. This is a pretty good one that really helped the cause. It was kind of a slow and steady cull up, and then finally I'm waiting to catch this big one, and grinding, going through a whole bunch of them, and then all of a sudden, whap, on that slobber knocker, a great big one hits. I mean, it's like a 7-pounder. He buries up in some of those dead reeds, and they're the dead flat reeds, so they're gummy, and I'm pumping them out of there. And man, it was my day that day. The bottom fish, my smallest ones, were low 3s, and when you throw a 7 in there on top of it with some 4-pounders, it turned out to be a pretty darn good day right there. And then at the end of the day, a fellow competitor broke down. He was out of battery power. I'm giving him a booster pack, trying to help him get going. Ended up giving him a ride back, but I'm going around him, talking to him, and get one more cull. You know it's your day when you can just kind of blindly cast around and get a cull at the end. So at the end of day one, I had a little bit more weight than I thought. I didn't weigh those top end fish of mine. Ended up being, before the dead fish penalty, I had 22 pounds. So that put me in 9th place. Great start to the tournament. That freed me up on day 2. Any limit was going to get me to the finals, get me a payday. So at that point, I could be pretty aggressive and go after what I think I needed to do to try to stay in contention, try to win the thing. So day 2, you can see it's a lot sunnier. We don't get that morning bite. I'm ready to start catching them up. That swimming worm, I catch one after grinding for a long time. It's a little one, and I made a little switch. I went to Berkeley's Speed Boss, a little bit different style worm. I ended up catching my biggest fish of day 2 on that. And this one's another one, about 7 pounds. And instead of a single tail swimming worm, it's a twin tail. This one helped a lot, helped settle me down. But man, after that, it slows down. And then I went for like an hour not catching anything. They come up schooling around me. I throw a swimming worm in there. Boom, I catch one. You know, when I switched that Berkeley worm to the Speed Boss, when I see him schooling, I kept on thinking, man, this is going to be the deal. But man, it was a grind to start. Really tough, and I'm really working for him at this point. Yeah, so after that third fish, man, it got tough. And I knew with that big fish, I'm already in the finals. I just have to catch 2 more, just rats. I'm going to make it. But man, it's a struggle. And I went a couple hours without a bite. I mean, I'm just struggling. And I run into a fellow competitor. We fished around each other on day 1, kind of going around in circles in day 2. Spike Stoker, he's from Texas, a hammer down here. And he gives me the tip. Then all that thick stuff, the last thing I would have thrown, he's throwing a lipless crankbait in it. And I mean, I'm seeing him catch it, so obviously it's working. We're kind of sharing water there and meeting, going past each other. And I pick up the lipless, and things start happening. So right after talking to Spike, I pick up a war pig in gold. That lipless in Florida's always been good to me. I put on some EWG, the Fusion 19 extra wide gap trebles, and man, I'm glad I did. This thing, I'm pumping it, keeping it out of there, and it bites almost underneath the trolling motor, comes up and gets it. I fight him down underneath the boat. I drift on top of him, and somehow stays hooked up, and it's a 6-pound fish, and I'm really rolling now. So at that point, man, I think I'm rolling. I'm just going to crush him. I catch another one pretty quickly on the lipless, and trying to stay out of those reeds. You know, I tried several different weights and colors and sizes and stuff, so I did play with that. Mostly gold and chrome. Mostly that war pig. I threw a number of different ones, trying to really dial it in, and kept on going back and forth with the worm. But basically, that lipless came on that afternoon. Got a couple more upgrade fish, but no more big ones like that. The fun was kind of over. I ground through it, and you can see here, get a few more fish. At one pretty good upgrade right there late in the day. But you can see I put these last couple in. I was cycling back and forth on baits, and basically I was still getting some bites, and it got a little bit of an afternoon turn on, but not like day one. And my fish were kind of moving more towards spike. Like David Walker on day one was way up inside, and he caught the biggest bag, of day one up there. The fish were kind of moving out to me, and it seemed like they were moving farther out. And by the time, this last one's not even a keeper, and that was kind of a sign of things to come. Basically, it seemed like the fish from that area that I was in, they were kind of moving out. Well, at the end of day two, I ended up having another 19 pounds. A good day there. Those two big fish probably made up about 13 of those 19 pounds. Those kind of saved me, made it a little deceiving. I could see the bite going away. I was still in 10th place, but I knew I was going to have to kind of mix it up on day three. The quality was going away. Unfortunately, day three, the bite in my area, the worm bite was totally dead. I just could not get bit on it. Had to go to lipless. And the thing was, in the area, my primary area, they just weren't eating it very well. I told you on day one, those EWG style treble hooks, those were hooking up fish well. You had to take pliers to rip them out. Well, they were kind of slapping. I went to just the round bend, the regular style hooks on day three. Well, guess what? Then they're nipping at it. They barely get it. Had some jump off. I had two good bites that day, and neither one of them hooked up solidly. They just didn't get the bait. They came right at me and lost them. So if I land both those, it's kind of like day two. I look like a hero again, get those two good bites, but I didn't. The bite was slower. Spike, to his credit, he fished farther out, and I was telling you about those open areas were kind of the key. Well, on day three, they kind of pulled into those reeds, and if you would flip them, you just get little fish. But he was starting to take his lipless and really banging in there. He was snagged up the whole time. I talked to him later. He was always snagged, but he was throwing it into Hell's Half Acre, trying to get him out on the lipless. And he caught 22 pounds that last day. So basically, the fish were still around, a little bit more out by him, but they were really buried up in there, and he was popping the lipless a little more, triggering those fish to bite. So it got tougher. All ended well, though. Stayed in a high enough place to get that $10,000 check, so that was good. And 27th place finish was great points. Anytime in Florida, when you start the season, you want to do well in that first one, so I'll take it. So moving on to baits real quick. Obviously, I've talked about the War Pig, the lipless. I cycled through a lot of baits. All these, I'm going to show you some of my primary ones, but the main thing was I was refishing behind myself time after time in a couple acre area. A lot of other competitors were cycling through there as well. So the main thing was mixing it up, changing the colors, changing your cadence, changing the weight of the bait, the profile and stuff. That was the key. So even though the War Pig did my most damage on the lipless and that gold, I caught him on the chrome one as well. Tried some other brands and stuff too, some lighter ones, real light baits I could hover a little better. That caught a couple. The slobber knocker, that was the key on day one on those couple big bites. Obviously, a couple classic colors there. I was using 3/8. Sometimes in the hydrilla, you want the heavier one to get it down there, really plow through. With all those cattails, it was gumming up, and you kind of had to feather it more. I was pumping that through a little bit more. But the hard knock, the one thing about the slobber knocker, that blade hits really hard and seems to come through wood and like those reeds a little better. So that kept me from getting hung up too much. And then I couldn't tell between the power stinger, and then I was using a power swimmer as well with that boot tail back and forth. It was pretty even on that. The key was if you just kept your head down and fished them, you would get those big bites. The jerk shad, that would get some numbers, but not much size. The one thing I like about the jerk shad, it has almost no salt, so it really glides. These cattails, a lot of them, the reeds were only a couple feet deep. So this thing, instead of just falling real fast, it was a slow dying fall. That got some bites, but it really wasn't the deal this time. The guides, they were fishing. They had customers all around there, and they were twitching and working them pretty fast. I don't know that I saw a guy fish or a customer catch a single fish on it. So obviously it had been working recently, but for whatever reason, they didn't want that active presentation this week. And then swimming a worm, like I said, the Speed Boss in the larger size. I was using a 1/4 ounce on this, 15-pound fluorocarbon. I was doing it kind of a medium pace, and there's a lot of swimming worms. That's an old technique down there. Obviously there's the speed worms, and then there's burner worms and scorcher. Like every tackle company down there's like 50 different styles, and they're all kind of the same thing. So I mixed up the style a lot, my retrieve a lot, the colors a lot, kept on trying it. It just seemed like that natural kind of like green pumpkin, watermelon candy, stuff like that. Watermelon red was the best, although June bug was working some. The main thing was getting in front of the fish. And then, like I said, day 2, when I catch that big one, I thought, man, I switched up styles from a single tail to this double tail speed boss. I'm like, oh, I'm so smart. I'm going to smash him now. And that stopped too. The overall theme, as you can see, it seemed like just when you're refishing that water, keep on changing up, show them a different profile, different cadence, something different. That was the key, because they had seen my baits like 8,000 times by the end. Now for rods and reels, I'll be fully honest here and show you like the good and the bad, because I had a couple of them exactly right, and I think with that lipless I screwed up there. But using the new Revo, that Gen 5, boom and cast out there, that it has that enhanced spool size now and the bigger gap to the line stripper guide, getting it downwind. I was shutting all my sonar off. I was trying to be as quiet as possible, trying to go into or with the wind, drifting, not spooking those shallow fish. So booming out a cast was important. I was using the 15-pound fluorocarbon. I think that was getting more bites in the braid. And I was using the Fantasista X, both for the bladed jig and for those swimming the worm. I was using the 7.6, so like a flipping stick and a heavy. I was launching it out there, and I could still muscle those fish out. That long cast staying way back, that was helping me get more fish, I believe, instead of getting up on top of them and being able to catch them. So that long rod, that was an advantage here. Now in the lipless, this is where I think I screwed up a little bit. And I use the combo that I like normally when I'm throwing in hydrilla, more open water with the lipless, with that war pig. I use 20-pound, 100% fluorocarbon. That bigger line diameter, that was a good idea. Kept the bait up higher, didn't fall as quickly, stayed up out of those reeds, didn't snag as much. Using the old school Revo here, booming out cast, all that was good. But I normally throw it on the winch. This is an 8-foot cranking rod. And when you barely get those fish hooked on a treble hook way out there, that really works in your favor. You boom out your lipless, you throw it way out there, keeps that soft tip, just like a deep diving crankbait. You use an 8-foot rod. When I'm using that lipless, I like to do the same thing. However, I was trying to make more precision casts, or I should say what Spike was doing, catching them around me, was making more precision casts with a shorter rod right into those reeds. With that 8-foot rod, it's great for just booming it, making a long cast like I was doing with the bladed jig, with the swimming worm. When I went to lipless, and that last day when you kind of need to put it in there, a shorter rod's going to be more accurate. The wind was howling every day there too. You really need to make more of a roll cast. An 8-foot rod, and then you notice in the video I'm trying to roll cast with it some. I should have switched over to like a 7-foot medium heavy winch, almost like you're throwing around docks or laydowns. That would have put more precise cast. It was really where you place the bait was more important than fighting the fish. So I think I would have given up a little bit of that, maybe lose a couple more, but get a lot more bites. So there you have it. Fun week at Okeechobee, catching lots of fish, big fish, getting paid to do it. Hey, I'll take it. Appreciate you guys watching. If you liked it, give me a like, give me a sub. Hopefully I'll have some good adventures to share with you next time.